Steel Vengeance is Cedar Point's 2018 hyper hybrid with the most airtime on any coaster. I mean, that will tell you right away how good it's going to be. It replaced the former Mean Streak, which is a massive Din Corporation wooden coaster from 1991. Not a very good coaster. Actually never got a chance to ride it, but I've heard from a lot of people that's not very good. And it was actually one of the world's tallest wooden roller coasters. But anyway, in this review I will be going over the layout and just kind of the overall experience that you can expect from pretty much the best coaster in the world. This is, well, how do you put it? Pretty much the world's best roller coaster. Well, I haven't ridden Iron Gwazi or Zadra. At least for now, what I've ridden, it's top tier. And one thing I want to point out quickly before going into the layout, this is pretty much as smooth as can be. I mean, besides this, really the only coaster in the park that's this smooth is, I guess, Valraven. But not even that. It's just really smooth. So if you don't like rough rides, I'm sure you're going to like this one because it is complete opposite of rough. Now let's get into some stats. It is 205 feet tall. It drops you at 200 feet. Length of 5,740 feet. That's pretty long. Well over a mile of track. Angle of descent is 90 degrees. No longer the steepest hybrid, but it used to be. Iron Gwazi beat it out by 1 degree. It's 74 miles per hour. You go through 4 inversions. And yeah, those stats already tell you that it's going to be a pretty good ride. And I know stats don't mean everything, but for this, the stats definitely help. The stats and the layout just really make it a great coaster. So anyway, when I went to Cedar Point, it had about 35-minute wait. But Fastlane is about 20, so still a little longer than I wanted to, so I didn't really get to marathon it all. But it's still so much better than it'll get on the average summer day. But anyway, these are the new gen RMC trains. So the swing axle ones, they're very comfortable, smooth, no like jank whatsoever. And they just look so good. I mean, Cedar Point really did a good job with those trains. And if you wonder, they do assign rows. But I asked for the back for my first ride, and they said yes. So if you're lucky to get a ride operator who not only doesn't staple you, which I was lucky enough to get, and who lets you pick your row, then you're pretty lucky. And let me just say, before my first ride, I was terrified that it wasn't going to live up to the hype. But wow, did it live up. It exceeded my expectations completely. Before, I didn't really experience ejector airtime until like Ride of Steel, and I mean that's good, but Steel Vengeance is a whole nother level. So actually the first thing you do is you take an 180-degree kind of slope turn out of the station. It gives you a pretty good view of Lake Erie and Maverick. But right after that, you go into 2 bunny hills, which, you know, if you've ridden an RMC, usually the pre-lift doesn't really give any airtime. That also applies for this one, but it's pretty fun to be thrown around like that, just to kind of show you what it can do. And then you go up your 205-foot lift hill. Easily probably one of the loudest lift hills ever. But anyway, it's pretty steep. I mean, the original Mean Streak lift hills, I want to say around 30 degrees. This one I think is 40 or 45. And if you're trying to get good views of the rest of the park, this is easily one of the best lift hills because it's kind of in the back. And like, if you look to your right, you can pretty much see the entire park. So it's just a breathtaking view. But the drop is amazing. Even if you're in the front, you're still going to get some strong, sustained floater airtime. But if you're in the back, you just get completely ejected over it. I mean, it is an RMC. So you've just gone down your drop, and one of the first things that you notice is it doesn't really pull that many positive, which is going to be a trend for this ride, which really doesn't bother me at all and doesn't seem to bother other people because, I mean, just by its records, you can tell that this coaster's main focus is on airtime, mostly ejectors, some floater. And speaking of airtime, you have your second airtime moment. This is a speed hill which gives some great ejector, just a quick pop. Then, well, you go up into what I think is the best element on the entire ride. And no, I'm not talking about the Outer Bank. I'm talking about the insane top hat. And no matter what row you're in, this is going to be an amazing element. Sustained ejector airtime, like a B&M Camelback, but ejector. I mean, it really can't get much better than this. You also have some laterals on the entrance and the exit. If you're in the front, it's going to be sustained throughout pretty much the entire thing. If you're going to be in the back, then it's going to be like probably better than the first drop, to be honest. But it just really proves that no matter what row you're in, this is going to be an amazing element. It is my favorite element on the ride, but I do not think it's the strongest airtime element on the ride. I'll get to that later. But to kind of wrap it up, that is my favorite element on any coaster, not the Outer Bank. And it's just so good, and you really should have higher expectations for it. And then the next element, the most talked about element on the entire ride, or maybe on any roller coaster in the entire world, the Outer Bank. I've heard people saying it's the best element on any coaster. I've heard people saying it's like 5-second ejector hill, which is totally not true. So, don't get me wrong, it's a great element because it's on Steel Vengeance and everything on Steel Vengeance is good. But I think Millennium Force has stronger airtime than that. But it really only gives like weak floater. After you level out from the Outer Bank, you go into a step up, great sustained ejector airtime, and then what I think is the best inversion on the ride, not moment on the ride, but inversion. It's a 0G roll variant. It's pretty much like more than 360 degrees, so you feel like you're twisting for a while. And it's like a mix of ejector and hang time. You just kind of float through it, but also like aggressively get whipped. It's a very cool feeling. Then you go into a kind of mini wave turn. Kind of fun little element. Then you go into like a Maverick like 0G stall. And don't let the name fool you. You don't get hang time. So pretty much like a 0G stall, but you don't stall up there. It's very fast-paced and can catch you off guard if you're not expecting it. It's in no way is it uncomfortable. It's a very snappy, fun element. But anyway, then in classic Steel Vengeance fashion, you go into a double down, step down, whatever you want to call it. Once again, great ejector. The next element or series of elements are arguably the most insane part of Steel Vengeance. At least I think they are. And a few other people I've seen also agree with me. I should warn you that if you don't like ejector that tries to rip your face off, then don't ride this in the front row. I am talking about the insane double up into the mid-course. And that first up, I guess, is so sustained. I mean, I've never ridden Twisted Colossus, but if you have, I'd probably compare it to the first kind of major Camelback. But it's so sustained, and even in the back row, the second up, like, ejects you out of your seat. I mean, that just proves how strong it is that even in the back you get ejector airtime on the second one, which isn't even as strong in the front. Then about the mid-course, most of the time it isn't on, but sometimes you can get unlucky. Like in my front row ride, it was on. Still not on that much, but like I said, I was in the front row, so the drop off of the mid-course, which is great in the back, already wasn't going to be as good. So I wasn't really missing a lot, and It really doesn't make a difference to the second half. The only thing it makes a difference to is the drop and maybe the double up after. But anyway, speaking of the double up after, once again, as a common trend on this ride, each hill on it gives great ejector airtime. And then you go into this twisted S hill that I guess you could say gives the Gemini effect. Which, if you don't know what I mean, the second hill after this turnaround, you start to go down, then you get just completely ejected because you go down further than you thought and there's a good head chopper. And that's pretty much exactly what this does. Only this is better because it's stronger ejector and it's twisted. So, I mean, what's not to like? Then most of the rest of the ride is repeated elements, which by no means am I saying that they're bad. They're just ones that are kind of copied and pasted. You have an overbank, a zero-G roll. Same can be said about this one as the first one, just not quite as good. 2 bunny hills, another wave turn, which actually gives some great sideways airtime. I actually like that better than the outer bank. Another zero-G roll, same story there. Another overbank, the amazing ejector bunny hill finale into the brake run. And wow, is it a long ride. It feels like it's never gonna end, which is a good thing. Yeah, like, really my only complaint with Steel Vengeance is, wait, what's my complaint again? Yeah, clearly this ride is flawless, especially when there's coasters in the same park like Magnum, where the entire thing is just a flaw in itself. Well, on to the score. I can't imagine giving it a score anything other than a 10. This is truly the best coaster on Earth, at least that I've ridden. And I only have 35 credits, but still, there are people like Airtime and Thrills that have like, what, over 400 credits, and it's still his number one. So if you've enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video, probably with another review.